I'ma smoke weed for the rest of my life.
Alright, what is up YouTube? We are back in the grow right now, not doing a checkup on the plants though. Instead, I wanted to cover a topic that I get asked all the time. My Instagram, this has to be the number one question I get asked almost daily, and that is, what pot size should I use? Use, obviously soil and cocoa is where this pertains to mostly. There's other things you can do, but those are the two I get asked the most. That and can I jump up, how big of a jump can I make with the pot sizes? And I think that one's more my fault, and that's because I go from solo cups to 7 gallons. I'll explain why I do that, how I did it before, and all of that, so I'll get into it. So if you guys ever want to know those questions, stay tuned. This is the video for you kind of thing. So just to get right on into it. Oh, that's hot. Okay. Wait, that cool down. Set this down for myself. Alright, so what pot size should you use? Let's go to that one first. Or your final pot size, right? It's gonna be, and you won't like this answer, I seem to say that quite often, it depends. It depends is almost always the answer. So if you're gonna ask me a question, think of, it depends. What would Tri-State do? You know what I mean? Tri-State's gonna tell you, it depends, man. So what does it depend on, right? Honestly, it depends on how much time you have and how you're watering. Those are the two things. So, and what I mean by that is, let's say you want to grow in a solo cup. You can do that. I've seen some pretty good sized plants come up. I've seen plants out of solo cups bigger than some plants I see people posting on Instagram. Not hating on anyone, right? I'm just saying I've seen people who know how to do it right do it in solo cups. How are they doing it though? They are watering all of the damn time. Of course they're using synthetic salts, right? Because there's no microbial life if you're packing that much roots, because it's a solid root ball at that point, into that. Which, that comes into play a little bit as well, with the soil versus cocoa. But to give you the long and short, because I don't want to make this video drag on, what pot size should you pick? It's going to depend. It's going to depend on your watering frequency and how you're watering. Obviously, watering frequency and how you're watering kind of go hand in hand. So, for example, let's say you wanted to grow in a 1 gallon, that's it, or a solo cup, you're going to be watering a lot. What type of watering are you doing? Do you have, drip line irrigations? Or are you hand watering either by, buckets or with a wand like I used to do up until recently? That matters, because how much time do you have in a day? Can you go into your grow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 times a day? Whatever it is, right? Because the smaller the pot size and the bigger the plant, it's going to be drinking. Now, when it comes to cultivations, they obviously use drip irrigation, and they do it, in cocoa grows, you see cultivations using 1, 2, or 3 gallons usually. Very rarely will you see 5 gallons, but it happens. 1, 2, and 3 is usually where it's at. They have drip line irrigations, and they do very frequent waterings. You might see 12, 18. I've seen up to 20 a day, but that was with rock wool. That has a very fast dry back time. Rock wool doesn't play too big of a role in a lot of people who are doing home grows, so I won't get too deep into that. But kind of a similar process, concept there. They do it in those smaller containers because they want that dry back time. That's why cocoa and rock wool kind of go hand in hand, because their soil is sort of like a hydroponic, but it's not full-on hydroponic, right? There's no soil involved. It's an inert media. It has very fast dry back times. It holds water to air ratio very well, stays fluffy. Unlike soil, has a slower dry back time, and it can get waterlogged very easily. So that's what it's going to depend on. If you have a drip irrigation system, you can basically do whatever pot size you want. If you're doing it by hand, you might want to be able to have the life. You might want to be able to leave and not have every single day, multiple times a day in there watering. So you need to take that into consideration when you're picking a final pot size, right? How big your plant's going to be getting in that pot size. So it might be a little bit of play, but that you're going to have to know those kind of things. Obviously, if you, like me, for example, right here, these are 7-gallon pots. Why? Because I was daily hand watering every single day in 7 gallons. So, if I would have went smaller, I'd have been in here without a doubt 2 times or more a day. And once a day, I already couldn't go nowhere. If I do, I got to make sure somebody can go and check on the grow for me, because I or I have to go in between runs. I can't, I couldn't go on vacation for 2 days, right? Without hiring my brother to come, or a friend, or whoever it was, someone to come assist me. So, keep that in mind when you're picking, because you want to have a life outside growing. Growing is fun. It's very therapeutic. At least to me it is. But you got to be able to have a life too, right? That ain't the only hobby. So that's going to play a big factor into it. Obviously, if you're in soil, there's a bigger dryback time on that, so it's a little bit different. You might want to have larger pot sizes. Also, because you don't want it to be completely maxed out with roots if you're going to be doing like an organic style growing, because you need room for microbial life. Which that kind of goes into root bound stuff, and if that's the thing, and I'll make another video on that. So, long story short, on the size you want, your end size is going to be your water frequency. How much do you want to dedicate? If you're watering by hand, think you might want a larger pot size. If you have drip irrigation, it won't matter as much. Usually this tends to be a thing more for synthetic growers. Like I've been running Athena, obviously. Synthetic, if you're going to do organic soil, microbial life, diversity, you probably want to have 5, 7, 10 gallon pot size, depending on how big your plants are going to be getting, obviously. So that way you have plenty of room to go into it. You have lots of soil, not just maxed out with roots. Because microbial life has to exist. Now, that brings us to the second point, and that is, how big of a jump can you make? You guys know that I go from a solo cups to 7 gallons. I used to go solo cups, 1 gallon, 7 gallons, but I realized cocoa dry, because I did that because that's how I would do in soil, right? And I would go, solo, 1 gallon, 5 gallon. But now I'm in cocoa, I go solo straight over. And that's because it dries back faster. It has a faster dry back time than soil does. So I can water it, and the roots will expand. It'll dry within 3 days, 4 days, even if it's 7 gallons never been touched, because it's really fluffy, it doesn't get waterlogged down, and the roots will just expand out into them very quickly. Now soil, it takes longer for the roots to expand. I don't know if that's just because how dense the soil is, or because it just doesn't have that great air to water ratio, or as great as cocoa does. Not that it's bad, obviously. But now, and also you can't make a big jump because you can easily waterlog, around, which means you're going to increase your chance of root rot, which you guys know I just made a video about that, and whatever else, bunch of, obviously mold, fungus, and stuff like that may grow, whether it's beneficial or not beneficial. That's up to the organic growers. A lot of people want that, so that's a debate outside of my knowledge of expertise there. But so you want to take those things into consideration. So if you're going to be going cocoa, you might be able to do that big jump, no problem. Now if you're in soil, you might not want to go solo to 5 gallons. You might want to go solo to 1 gallon to 5, or 1 gallon to 7, or something like that. If you're going to be going all the way up to 10 gallons, you may want to have a couple more. Solo, 2 gallon, 5 gallon, 7 gallon, 10 gallon, something like that. Obviously you have to keep in mind there's going to be that, the stress every time you transplant. Where your final thing, you're going to have a trellis net, maybe you don't have an option. You'll just have to go from one to the other and make a little bit of a bigger jump. But as long as you can't just go from small to 10, or small, from solo cup up. So those are the kind of things you need to take into consideration. Soil is going to be a little bit different approach because of that. So I just wanted to cover that. Thought it'd be very informative. Hopefully that helps some of you guys out. If any of you have, and this is just me, right? So if you guys have your own ways of doing this, especially in soil, since I haven't really been about that as much lately, feel free to drop it in the comments. I would love to hear the opinions. Plus, I think it'd be beneficial for other people to get differing opinions and why you do it. Not just what you do, but why you do it. So that people can make educated decisions on their own. They can listen to me talk, they can read your comments, and they can choose what's best for their individual scenarios, because we're all growing in different environments, different conditions. Whether you have fabric pots versus plastic pots, obviously that's going to affect your dryback. So all these kind of things play in. So that's it. I want to go ahead and I'll end it here. Don't want to go on too long. Like I said, trying to make this shorter. So peace out, YouTube. And as always, guys, happy growing.
Rest of my life, see I'm in love with Mary Jane. I'm gonna make her my wife, yeah.